Hi there, Telebait here, with a quick video just before the expansion releases later today. I wanted to go over 3 new decks I've theory crafted that will make the most out of some of the new cards, and some of these decks are probably a little more spicy, maybe memey than what I've done before, but I really wanted to go for some fun decks this time around rather than just decks that you can do really well with. And also, as we go through, I'll go over my thoughts on the new cards. Don't want to spend too much time on that, but a little bit of my early opinions on some of these new cards. So the first deck I've got here is a deck I wanted to build around Zilean. And Zilean is a card which has a lot of different ways you can potentially build him just because he's so versatile. He's a solid body, 1/4 for 2 mana. It's decent, nothing great, but his create 4 time bombs in your deck is really insane. And the time bombs are just great cards. Draw 1 and a great control tool, dealing 1 to the whole of your opponent's board. And it gives Shurima a bit of something different. It didn't have this good anti-aggro early game. Zilean will probably enable you to go a much more control-y direction with Shurima. The only issue is you will have to draw into these time bombs, and therefore a bit of predict is required with Zilean, which is why I've gone with Ancient Preparations. I could have also gone with the 2-drop Spiring Chronomancer. This card would be good, but I just didn't find the space for it in this deck. So what I'm going for here is a Zilean Karma synergy, and I did have a lot of thought about which way I'm going to build Zilean. Zilean Swain seemed really good, but this one just seemed a little more fun to me. And the main win con with this deck is literally just get Karma to level 10 and then you bore your opponent to death with the ridiculous amount of value Karma gives you from her leveled up effect. And I've built this deck around the recall effect. So these effects could end up being really, really bad. But I think in this patch, with the addition of Dancing Droplet, you've got enough recall synergy now that you can build a deck focused on recall. And I think Zilean is also a great recall target. Putting more time bombs in your deck. Time bombs is a great card. You're not going to complain about having more of them. You need to be careful which matchups you do it in. Obviously, you want to replay Zilean against aggro decks because you can use more time bombs to deal with that board. But against control decks, you go with Dancing Droplet to get more draw, and you can outvalue them using the card advantage you get from all the drawing. And we've also got Shadow Assassin, which is another great recall target. And to enable you to recall these, I'm running Retreat and Return. This is a great card, especially because you can block with a unit, then play Retreat onto it, and then use the Return to play something more expensive out, so something like a Shadow Assassin. So the ideal situation is you play Dancing Droplet, your opponent attacks in, you block with Dancing Droplet, you play Retreat onto Dancing Droplet, and then you use Return to play a Shadow Assassin. That way you draw 2 cards, and you manage to block one of your opponent's attacks as well, and only for 3 mana. It's 2 cards and blocking an attack for 3 mana. Pretty good. And the other one we've got is Monastery of Hirana. And I'm not so sure about this one. This one might be cut out later, which is why I've only gone for 2 of, and just gives you another way to recall these units and get the most out of their summon or recall effects in the case of Dancing Droplet. The rest of this deck, we've got a lot of survival and control tools. So things like Eye of the Dragon, providing you the Dragon Lane just so you can survive. Things like Quicksand to enable you to deal with units which could have Overwhelm or help you get good trades. Shapestone is another card just to help you get good trades to deal with the slightly more beefy units. Concussive Palm just to help stall out, and Spirit Fire to stall out. And I'm also running Singular Will, which is kind of like, we don't have Ruination in this deck, so Singular Will is the best next thing. And like I mentioned before, we've got a lot of recall synergy, so it could work out really, really well. Gone for a lot of spicy takes in this one, but I'm really, really excited to try this out. And I think the deck as is will not be good, but I think with a little bit of refining, this deck could become something fairly decent. And the last cards I'm running, Deny. You're in Ionia. You should be running Deny if you're in Ionia. There's no reason not to. Deep Meditation just to get some more draw. And Inner Sanctum, which is, I really, really like this card with Karma just because it gives you a way to win other than boring your opponent to death. You can get like Overwhelm, Quick Attack, lots of stat buffs, put on your Karma, attack in, and win that way. You're not just reliant on slowly outgrinding your opponent with Karma. And like I mentioned a couple times, this deck will definitely need refining for its good. So if you're going to go straight in for one of my decks, this isn't the deck I would go for. In fact, the last deck I'm going to show today, which is the one I'm most excited for, is probably the deck which is most likely to be good straight off the bat without any more refining. The next deck I'm going for is Atalia Malphite setup. So I've started with this one. I really wanted to build something around Malphite, just because he's a great card, and when he levels up, he gets that unstoppable force, and that card is just game winning. Like, a lot of people thought like, oh, it's got stun, it'll synergize well with Yasuo, but the thing is, if you play that 2-mana stun all your opponent's units, it doesn't matter whether you have Yasuo or not on the board. If you have a decent sized board, you're winning on that attack anyway. So I don't think the way to go with this deck is to pair him with Yasuo. The two champions I really wanted to pair him with were either Leona or Talia. The two champions I really wanted to pair him with were either Leona or Talia, and Leona with Daybreak synergy seemed like a really good way to go, but I went with Talia for this one just because if Talia is going to work in a deck, it's going to be this deck. There's no other deck she will ever work in, at least not in her current state. So what we've got with this is you're just looking to power level Malphite as soon as possible, so when he comes down turn 7, he's leveled, and you play that unstoppable force, and you win on turn 7, 8, maybe 9. So to help survive the early game, I've gone for a lot of these landmark plus unit cards. So things like Ancient Preparations provides a unit which can help you block. Same with Blue Sentinel, and same with Rockhopper. Blue Sentinel is one of these cards which I initially thought was really bad. The more you think about it, this card is really, really strong, especially in a deck built around leveling Malphite. And then to help level Malphite up, we've got Saltspire and Eye of Raharak. The Eye of Raharak pretty much levels Malphite up by itself. You play it with its Daybreak effect, and that gives you 10 mana towards Malphite leveling up. So if you played literally any other card in this deck, he'll probably level. Or the other way to level him up is using Saltspire into Talia, and this is a great way to get a decent board as well. So I really like this combo because you play Saltspire, you play Talia, then you get the two Grumpy Rock Bears, you have Talia on the board, hopefully Talia is leveled as well, and then you play down Malphite, he's leveled, you stun everything, you've got a big board, everything on your opponent's side stun, you attack in and you kill them off from 20 health. That's sort of the ideal situation with this deck. And to help you provide some of those beefy units to attack in with, I've also got Desert Naturalist to help you get a Grumpy Rock Bear out. Merciless Hunter doubles up as one of those units with a lot of attack to get an attack in, and it can also be used as a form of removal because this deck lacks a lot of removal, so that's why I've gone with Merciless Hunter. I've also gone with Rockfall Path to kind of fill in that removal gap, but I'm not convinced Rockfall Path's a good card, so this might be a cut, but I really wanted to try it out in this deck. So this deck is fairly good as is. It might need some refining. The main bit I'm concerned about is these removal cards. It might need different forms of removal, maybe a bit more give vulnerable methods, or it might need an alternative win condition, possibly using Overwhelm to get a Malphite attack or Talia attack through. The last deck I've got here is actually something I'm really excited for. I've got Azir Z at the moment, but it's supposed to be Irelia, not Zed. They just haven't put her up on this site yet. I'm using this site just because it's like they're the quickest at getting cards out. We'll see if they've got Irelia yet, literally as I'm recording this. Oh, yes, they do. So take out the Zeds, put in Irelia, and this is the deck we're going to run now. So this is all built around the new Blade Dance mechanic. And it's actually a deck I built last expansion, but it just didn't work. And I'll get onto that in a second. So Azir, really strong, you attack in, and then I was combining Azir with Field Musicians, and that allowed you to completely replenish your hands. But the deck had two issues. One, he gives you spell mana. I wasn't really making any use out of the spell mana. And the second one is I found in this region combination, we didn't have any form of rallying. So when you pair Azir with Demacia, you get all those rally effects, which is really insane for leveling up. But now we've got this Blade Dance effect that literally fills in one of the big gaps. It also means proccing Field Musicians every turn is really, really easy. And the last gap we needed is some good spells to synergize in this deck, and Syncopation, absolutely not spell. You do something like a leveled Azir. Let's say you've Blade Danced again, you've got an Azir on the board, an Emperor's Dais. That's summoning 6 units, so Azir's already up to 8 attack. Then you do your actual attack in, they try and block Azir, you Syncopation to swap Azir to an unblocked unit, and suddenly your opponent's taking 8 damage to your face from your Azir, or even more, actually. It would be even more, it'd be like 10 damage or something. And it's not an unrealistic position to be in. And that's not even talking about the new champion. We're getting Irelia. This champion seems really, really good. Quick attack, always really strong. Same stat lines as Zed, actually. And Zed, as a 3-2 with quick attack, it's a completely fine unit. And you get the flawless duet from Irelia every turn, which is another form of effectively rallying. It's not quite rallying because you only attack with the blades and the sand soldiers. But for the purposes of this deck, it's pretty much a rally. And to synergize with all these summoning effects, I've also got Sparring Student. You would think you would also want to run Green Glade Duo, and that's something I would want to try out. But I was kind of thinking about it, especially when you're using something like Syncopation anyway. The elusive keyword isn't that big a deal, and I'd rather have to pay 1 less mana for my unit and get extra health on it, because this can just get killed by a Val Feast or Withering Wail or all sorts. And this deck is fairly vulnerable to those cards. I guess Withering Wail isn't vulnerable because you can just deny, and you'll pretty much always have deny mana because you have Field Musicians. And to help with the Field Musicians mana thing, which I mentioned before, I'm also running Desert's Wrath. Probably not that great, but I can see so many times where Desert's Wrath is just effectively costing you 1 mana because you're not making any use of the extra mana Field Musicians gives you. So having a 1 mana grant all your sand soldiers +1/+0 and summon 2 sand soldiers, that's a pretty good card, so I'm running it here. It might have to be cut out. And finally, Inspiring Marshal will be an absolutely nuts card in this deck, giving all your blades free attack, all your sand soldiers free attack. Inspiring Marshal was pretty nuts even before Blade Dance was introduced. Now Blade Dance introduced, this card's going to be insane. And this deck I expect to be absolutely amazing. It's just so much damage. Syncopation means your opponent has to constantly block these blades, otherwise they risk you swapping in a really, really strong unit. And this is the deck I'm most excited for. And it will need a little refining, possibly bring Green Glade Duo, possibly take out Desert's Wrath, possibly add another deny. There's a lot of potential options, but I feel something along the lines of this will be really strong. So that's all 3 decks today. Hopefully you can try them out as soon as the expansion drops in only a few hours from now. I'll definitely be trying them out, and I'll do future deck guides with refined versions of these decks, so subscribe if you want to see them, and leave a like if you found these deck ideas interesting. Till next time, thanks for watching, and have a good day.